This is a Muscle Cat Media production.
Time again for the weekend pickoff here on Baseball Expats. And again, we get to bag Eric. He was so annoying the last week about the Toronto Maple Leafs that we decided to give him a weekend off. No, he's snowed under. It's tournament season in Australia, so the man is busy. So it's just the two of us, Spoon and I. Spoon, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not loving looking at my annual leave entitlements and seeing Eric's been allocated some of mine. There's no holidays for this guy anymore because Eric's taking them on our behalf. But I'm very good. I'm excited for the weekend ahead. It's been a good week of baseball so far.
And Eric's not the kind of guy that gives you like a long heads up that he's not going to be at work today. He's the one that rings you at 8:55 when he's supposed to clock in at 9 and goes, "Hey, by the way, not feeling well." Eric's not the guy that goes, "Hey, I'm not going to make it in tomorrow." Eric's the one that'll ring you 2 minutes before the thing is supposed to start and say, "Hey, don't have time to do this today." But the show must go on. And look, this might be the last time that you and I speak to each other this weekend because there's a big series in St. Louis. Cardinals, D-Backs, two teams separated, I think, by a game or a game and a half. Both teams that are fighting for a wild card spot. Cardinals second in their division. D-Backs, despite being fourth in the NL Central, still very much in that wild card race that's wide open. I mean, it's still May. But you and I were talking earlier, this could be one of those series where we learn a lot about two different teams that, you know, are they middle of the road? Are they good teams? Are they good teams that beat up on middle of the road teams? I think we're going to learn quite a bit about both the Cardinals and the D-Backs in St. Louis this weekend.
Yeah, I think the conversation we had offline, the D-Backs have just gone on this run of like 7 games against the Dodgers in 10 days. They went 3-4 in those, but again, story of Arizona for years. League average bullpen, they probably win 5 of the 7. They've had games against the Mets. They've had games against the Phillies. Like those are teams that are, I guess, playoff locks, right? But now the D-Backs and the Cardinals are in that next tier of playoff hopefuls. And I guess you figure out now, are you too good to be considered playoff hopefuls, or is that sort of right where we are? And I guess splitting that series for either of us 2-1 probably says that's, you know, you are what your record says you are. I'm kind of hopeful the D-Backs can roll into town, take all 3, and we go, hey, you know, it's a good thing some of those Dodgers games are behind you now. The schedule should get a bit easier. And you know, not that St. Louis will be easy, but behind that, you've got the Pirates, the Nationals. There's a series against the Reds. The next 2 or 3 weeks will definitely tell us what the D-Backs are. Or if they're going to keep winning and losing every second day, they'll win 84 games and miss out on the wild card.
I haven't looked too closely at it yet. Have you looked at the pitching matchups for that series?
And Michael is tomorrow, and then the Sunday here is Kelly versus Liberatore, and then the Monday matchup is Brandon Fort versus Sonny Gray, which is a Destiny draft matchup as well. That could swing a few different things. What is that? That's going to be an awful early hour, isn't it?
It'll be a
Monday.
It'll be that typical 1:00 first pitch on a getaway day on a Sunday in St. Louis. But no, I'm actually really looking forward to that series. I mean, the Cardinals destroyed Detroit in the first game of that series during the week, and then had a tough 1-run loss in game 2 of that series. The bullpen let it get away late. So, you know, Detroit comes to town, the best record in the American League. It was sort of like, okay, Cardinals win that game, and that momentum sort of continues. But a young team who maybe Tarek Skubal potentially expose them a little bit. It'll be interesting to see potentially if the Diamondbacks can use any of the footage from that. I mean, he had a lead, so he was able to sort of utilize his fastball. When you throw 100 miles an hour, things become a little bit easier when you've got a big lead. But look, as a Cardinal fan, as a diehard, I'm still a little bit worried about St. Louis, despite the fact that they've been playing really, really good baseball. And I think a good litmus test is your Arizona Diamondbacks.
Tomorrow as well. Zach Gallen on the Ugly Watch Monday. I think tomorrow looms as a huge matchup for where he's at. He had this really weird quote, and I'm so familiar, like I said, with weird Zach Gallen quotes. He had this really weird quote a couple of weeks ago about how his breaking stuff only works at lower elevation, and that's why his 2 starts in New York this year, one against the Yankees, one against the Mets, he had like 10 and 13 strikeouts, and he's getting shelled in every other start. I mean, he's given up. Like, I have to laugh because I've defended this guy forever, and it's just getting like too hard now. He's giving up homers on his 91 fastball that doesn't really move. So I'm not sure it's like C level that's getting it done, but maybe we see how he goes in St. Louis if there's lower elevation there than there is in Arizona, or if he's going to stick with that. The first inning Blues have been awful, and I know Cardinals have been really good early in games, and also they're such a good contact team that he can't overpower teams, or can't overpower the Cardinals hitters. It's going to be interesting. Tomorrow's the one I'm definitely most scared of. Which Zach Gallen turns up is really going to probably define the series, because if he's out for 4 innings like he was last start against the Rockies, the flow-on effect that the D-Backs had this week of having bullpens go out from inning 5, 6, 7, and 8 against the Rockies then meant they lost 2 games they shouldn't have against the Dodgers. So it'll be the same thing here. If you can't get 6 quality innings or just 6 decent innings from Gallen tomorrow, the Cardinals will be in a great spot for that series.
Apple TV Plus game tomorrow as well. So a bit of theater between you and I, but it'll be very cinematic on Apple TV Plus. You teased at it just before that the Monday game Australia time, the Sunday afternoon game in St. Louis, will be a Destiny Draft matchup between you and I. Why don't you give us an update on the standings? Yeah, I haven't looked at them. I'll be honest. I don't really know how I'm traveling, but maybe you can give us an update on how we're going on Monday's Destiny Draft.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of like you're saying Bolt knows he doesn't need to look over his shoulder when he's running, but I'm looking up and seeing nothing but rump in front of me. And for someone who's going as horribly as I am, I've been looking at the scores a lot. So to recap, those who missed the Monday episode, Eric's team, he drafted Christopher Sanchez, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Schwarber. Rolsey drafted Sonny Gray, J-Rod, and Dylan Cruz. And I, in all of my wisdom, drafted Brandon Pfaadt, Pete Alonso, and Anthony Volpe. And it was a very interesting start. We didn't know, we still, I guess, don't know yet how overpowered pitching will be compared to hitting. Right now, the scoring is probably too small a sample size to comment on that. Rolsey was out of the gates very early with a dominant start from Sonny Gray. He had 10 strikeouts, 6 innings, no runs. So 13 points immediately on the board. At my current trajectory, it's going to take me a quarter of a year to get there. Eric got a decent start. He got, 7 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, 6 innings from Sanchez for 7 points. And I was blessed with Brandon Pfaadt, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 0 strikeouts, 0 points. So is pitching overpowered, or am I terrible at this game? It's too early to say. It could be a little bit of both. From a hitting point of view, I think J-Rod hit a grand slam. So I've got him at 10 points on the week. A lot of those came in one swing, effectively. Yeah. He got 6 from the grand slam. Eric has got 5 from Schwarber, 1 from PCA. I'm kind of tiptoeing around it. I'll tell you the scores right now. Rolsey's on 26, very clear on top, with 13 from Sonny Gray, 10 from J-Rod, and 3 from Dylan Cruz. Eric is on 13, 7 from Sanchez, 5 from Schwarber, 1 from PCA. And myself, the creator, the architect, the visionary of this great game we call Destiny Draft, I'm on 1 single point. I got 3 from Volpe, 0 from Pfaadt, and I'm on -2 from Pete Alonso. So, yeah, you could add my score to Eric's and we'd be still about half of yours. But where there's an interesting discussion point around that is Dylan Cruz is on the 10-day IL. So that 3 is locked in for you for the rest of the week. And J-Rod was scratched late from this morning's game. I'm not sure if more information's come out of that yet. So you've effectively just got 1 chance left to score points, and it'll be that Sonny Gray start on Monday morning against the D-Backs. Eric's got 3 chances to close the gap against you. I've got a desperate need for a miracle, you could say. We'll have to see. Brandon Pfaadt will get his chance against the Cardinals, but look, he didn't strike out any Dodgers. I can't imagine he's going to start dominating with the strikeouts against the Cardinals. So it's going to make scoring a little tough there. Pete Alonso is a guy that could hit a couple of big shots and get me some points in a hurry. But I do think it'll be between you and Eric come Monday for that inaugural weekly championship.
Yeah, and I think seeing how the scoring system plays out, like it's easy. Like we were on Tuesday because, like you said, through 1 swing of the bat and Sonny Gray's outing, which, he had an inordinate amount of strikeouts for Sonny Gray. it was sort of like, I think 16 of my points came within a 2-hour time span, right? So it's easy to kind of go, well, maybe things are a little bit disproportionate, but I think we'll probably know more after the weekend. And as we get to Monday, our time, to sort of see how, because Sonny Gray could go out legitimately. We've seen it this year 2 starts ago where he was 4 innings, 7 earned runs or something like that. And all of a sudden you're a -5. And, if Falk goes out and does something that's the inverse of that, all of a sudden I'm coming back to the pack and you're rising. So I think over time, as like with anything in baseball, if the sample size is very small, it's sometimes we get a little bit excited. But I think come Monday, we'll definitely have a better idea, I think, of the scoring system that you've architected. Yeah,
we could look back on this in a month's time and say that day you had was the best day anyway. Like 20 points. 20 points could just be an unbelievable day. We don't know yet. That's kind of the fun. And hopefully we'll look back on this and say 1 point after 4 days was just too bad to be true. Because the as we kind of joked about, the crazy thing is that I passed on all of these guys. Like I was too busy building my team of underachievers. So yeah. A little bit to watch, but it's been a lot of fun. I for a concept that we just kicked off this week, I've been tuning into it more than I thought I would. And the J-Rod Grand Slam was like, okay, cool. This has got legs.
It's the first time I think that I've gone box score hunting for Seattle Mariners games. So yeah, I'm with you. It's been a bit of fun. All right, let's get into the best for the weekend from you. Just to recap the tips from earlier in the week. Look, the boys went 0 from 3, but it wasn't from lack of trying, and it wasn't necessarily far off. So your first play was Chris Busch, 6 or more strikeouts in a Kansas City win against San Francisco. That was at about 3.7. He got 5 strikeouts. Kansas City still won, so you were a strikeout away from getting that tip. Tarek Struble, you had him under 7.5 strikeouts versus St. Louis. That was a weird start for him because the Cardinals were tracking very well through about 3+ innings.
Had 1 after 40, I think.
Yeah, and then I think at some point in there he struck out 5 of 6 and 4 in a row or something like that. And all of a sudden it was like the Cardinals, who were looking very Cardinals, all of a sudden weren't. St. Louis came back and tied that game in the 8th inning and ultimately lost it late. But that was one of those, it must have been a roller coaster for you because, through 40 pitches, you're going, great, Cardinals are Cardinaling. And then all it took was 6 more hitters and you knew you were in the proverbial.
I think 5 of those strikeouts were looking as well, which is so tough because it's like, dude,
5 of them were looking and somehow 9 of them were Jordan Walker. I don't know how that works, but it seems like that's what happened.
Yeah.
And that continued for the rest of the week, by the way. Jordan Walker, we're still sort of wondering what's going to happen with him. A lot of the Cardinals' homegrown guys are playing well. He's one of them that probably needs to pick it up. And Eric's pick was Orioles and Brewers, the over plus the Brewers -1.5. We'll have to go up and clip my thought on this from Monday because I was like, if it's over 9.5, odds are it's not going to be a 1-run game. So if you like a team to win the game and you like the over, you might as well take the -1.5. Well, what happened, Spoon?
It was a 1-run game, and run line Jesus, which is our baseball version of puck line Jesus.
Yeah.
He was with Eric taking the day off. He clocked in some annual leave of his own and left us stranded. Fight for our own units.
Yeah. So the boys very close again. Things were looking quite good at times in all 3 of those picks from earlier in the week, but unfortunately the boys go 0 from 3. But there is still a weekend of baseball ahead, Spoon. So what have you got for our listeners this week?
Okay, so tomorrow I found really tough, and I found it really tough because, as I was saying to you before, I can like a handful of players in a day, but there's a rule that whichever one I declare on the pod will suffer some sick, unfair fate. So I like tomorrow. I like a lot of players tomorrow. There's a lot of guys that I really like that are going around. I did consider. Look, Brian Bayo owes me some units, and he's not replying to my Instagram DMs. I'm going to be chasing my units on him, but I'm not going to make it my pod play. It's a 3 a.m. game. I'm going to wake up and see that he ripped my heart out of my chest again on a Saturday morning. The one that I've honed in on is Brewers Pirates, and it looks a really fun matchup. So Freddie Peralta for the Brewers, Skeens for the Pirates. That is pitcher on pitcher. The line is 6.5, which you will rarely see outside of like game 1 of a playoff series, ace versus ace. It helps that the Pirates haven't scored. I think until today they hadn't scored 4 runs in like 5 weeks or something like that. There was some horrible numbers around when they last scored 4 runs. But I love the pitching matchup of Freddie Fastball against Skeens. Been heaps of chat. Interestingly, right after you raised the point, I think Monday's show last week around like a theoretical Skeens trade, there has actually been bits of talk around that. And the talk has basically been, we're not talking about it, but that's how all conversations start. So something to watch there on the Skeens front. But again, I'm going to do this like I did at that line with Barrios and Houck. I want to play the combo strikeout tomorrow, and I'm going to have to sort of crystal ball the combo line a little bit based on where their lines are. I think we're going to be looking at 13 or more combined strikeouts for Peralta and Skeens at around the $2 mark. And I think that's going to be really good value based on the swing and a miss for both lineups, the electric kind of strikeout stuff they both have. So Skeens' line is 6.5. Freddie's is 5.5. Usually it's about one beyond that to get to the $2 mark at the combo. So I think we're going to be looking at 13. I want it to start with a 2 in front of it. So if it has to be 14, whatever the lowest sort of combo is with a 2 in front of it, I'll take that. But I'm thinking we might be able to get even 2 money, 13 or more strikeouts combined. And if that is the case, then whatever's around that sort of 450 mark, another little quarter unit top up. Because I think one of these guys has an 8 or 9 strikeout game in them tomorrow, and that won't mean the other needs to do too much more than sort of their average for the season. And we see time and time again as well, when one pitcher comes out and is dealing, the other guy likes to match it. There's so many sort of great pitching duels, and it's a reason I love the combo strikeout market so much. I think Skeens can set the tone early against the Brewers. Peralta will be up for the challenge. So let's play that as a combo strikeout play for Saturday. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, do beware, listeners, that if a pitcher gets thrown out in the middle of the game, that the wager still stands. The only reason I bring that up is because Walker Buehler got tossed in the middle of the game when he was shoving it during the week, and you just so happened to be on the exact same bet type in that ball game.
It was Clay Holmes. Is it Clay Holmes, the Mets starter, and Walker Buehler? They were in a pitching duel, but Buehler was 4 off 40. Holmes was kind of going a bit slower. I had him at 10 plus, which was the twos, and I had some top ups. Look, it cost me. It cost me just under $1,000 that ejection, so that was a costly one. I had a multi.
It was such an absurd objection too. Like if you go back, like sure he was chirping back, but it just seemed like
provoking him, right? Like he's like mask off, coming out of the like approaching the mound basically, and just like yelling at him. Obviously, because he knew he did miss it, and he was embarrassed, right? Like there was a ball right down the middle that he missed. There was a little bit of context before that as well. Lindor got hit by a pitch that he didn't try to get out of the way of. So Buehler was frustrated. The umpire gave him no leash. And then obviously Holmes went on. He got 5, I think. Buehler finished on 4, and the 10 was no bueno. Look, that didn't stop what's been a very fun week over on Twitter. So I do encourage people to check that out. There's been some nice collects, but that Buehler one, that was a new way to lose, which I seem to be very good at discovering.
Yeah, I couldn't get through you having a pitcher strikeout combo without mentioning it. All right, so the first play is Brewers Pirates. Freddie Peralta, Paul Skeens. 13 or more, you think, will be around that $2 mark. But if you do have to take 13 to get a price with a 2 in front of it, you're happy to do that. All right, what else have you got for us?
Yeah, so I then kind of struggled a little bit, but I looked ahead to I wanted to find one that we could play on Sunday, and I thought I want to be with the Blue Jays on the road against the Rays with Barrios on the mound. I think there's going to be a pretty good chance that's $1.90 each based on a couple of things. The Blue Jays look like they're going a bullpen game tomorrow because Eric Lauer is starting, and my understanding is he's a reliever. Our resident Toronto Blue Jays expert is, as we mentioned, on leave. But the Blue Jays are $2.25 tomorrow in a bullpen game. So my thinking is that when Sunday rolls around and they've got, I guess, their number 3, Barrios, you'd probably go Gossman, Bassett, Barrios is their third guy, against Shane Bars for the Rays is probably their 3. Looking at how they're pricing tomorrow, I think you're going to get $1.90 to $2 for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have been sneaky good. So they just swept the Padres, who arguably second or third best team in the National League at the moment. They're 6-4 in their last 10, but the bats are back. So they scored 7 runs today, 14 runs yesterday. Kevin Gossman for a long time has had this thing where he would kind of get Jacob deGrommed as far as run support, and he'd get like 1 or 2 runs and lose a close game all the time. They put that to bed yesterday, putting 14 on the Padres, and they scored 3 the day before in a shutout win. This team has always been threatening to break through with the bats. They went and made the big sort of splash from an offensive point of view by getting Santander. He's been very slow to start. They were missing Dalton Varsho for the first few weeks of the season. He's crushing the ball, hit a grand slam a couple of days ago. Vladdy hit a home run during the series. That we know there's upside there on his power numbers. They're going into a smaller sort of, minor league ballpark. The bats are kind of ticking along. They get a guy on paper starting who is better than the opposition starter. If we're getting $1.90 to $2 for the Blue Jays in a kind of prove-it series for the weekend, I think that's how I want to play Sunday's game.
Yeah, I like it. Look, I've enjoyed watching the Blue Jays play this year, even when they were sort of slumping early in the season. And I've also really enjoyed watching games at Steinbrenner Field. For whatever reason, it's such a different vibe than what you're getting in Sacramento, because I mean, obviously it's different. Like it's completely different circumstances, obviously, right? Like the Rays didn't abandon their fan base and move to a city in the middle of the next 2 years. Yeah, not yet. So it is a very different vibe because Rays fans are still coming out. It's just a much more intimate sort of space, because I mean, really, this time of year, depending on how the Rays are going, they wouldn't fill the Trop anyways, right? So in some ways, it's probably a better venue mid-season for Tampa Bay to be playing in. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. The Jays, now that they're playing a little bit better, particularly in their last sort of week and a half, and getting to sort of watch them play at Steinbrenner Field, I'm into that. So the play for Sunday, Jays versus Rays, we want to be with the Blue Jays, thinking it may be $1.90 each of 2. So take the Blue Jays, make Eric happy, but as long as they stay a game or a half game behind St. Louis, and I get my case of Schlafly at the end of the year.
And you keep getting to pick earlier on in Destiny Draft as well, because those standings, for those who missed Monday, outside of a little courtesy goodwill gesture for Eric's Leafs, we're going to be doing the draft order based on Cardinals, D-Backs, and Blue Jays standing or win record each Monday when we do our Destiny Draft. So yeah, a little bit to play for everyone there as well. And that series not only might decide this week's Destiny Draft, but could decide next week's draft order.
Well, we certainly hope that you have picked something up from us in the last 20 minutes or so. And don't forget, you can find all of Spoon's plays at Spoon Does Baseball on both X and Instagram. He's been very active and he's been very fruitful in the last week and a half. So you can find Spoon's plays there throughout the rest of the weekend. You can follow us on Baseball Expats on Instagram and X as well. We did an interview with Tyler Maughan, a minor league baseball broadcaster, podcaster, and taco truck enthusiast. That'll be coming out later this week as well. But don't forget, you can find us on Monday, as always, and we will deliver the final results of the first Destiny Draft. But until then, enjoy your weekend and enjoy your baseball. So long, everybody.